ladies and gentlemen, PWA members, friends, and honorable guest speakers. Mrs. Paola Corna Pellegrini, Miss Marilisa Guida, Mr. Antonio Ragusa, Mr. Roberto Argeri, and Miss Linda Lauda Sabbadini. Welcome to PWA. My name is Gerlie Saura, President of PWA, Professional Women's Association of Rome, an association that promotes gender equality, empowerment, and leadership in the world of work. 2020 was a difficult and challenging year, and there are lots of discussions about COVID and challenges for the global economy. But with every challenge, however, comes great opportunities. And I can say that PWA community has demonstrated great resilience and resourcefulness during these unprecedented times. Tonight, we will measure if PNNR and the recovery fund is sufficient and adequate enough to recoup the effective economic value of women's and youth unemployment, the recovery fund. As we know that beyond what anyone could have anticipated, it demanded from all of us. We immediately transitioned to the new digital, and I am so proud of my team's rapid transformation. Especially at this time, the world needs now more than ever unity, humanity, and compassion for those around us. And the PWA, a unique place for women who have distinguished themselves for their skills and human qualities, courage, and determination, but also models to follow for the younger generations. Finally, I would like to thank you all for your volunteering, membership, and support. This organization cannot exist without you, for which I am immensely grateful. Personally, it's an honor to have the opportunity to work with all of you to ensure that PWA provides you meaningful support and that the organization is well positioned for the years to come. The board members you elected and are committed to facilitating collaboration and dialogue to help the men and women members in our community recover and thrive. The board appointed a task force who did a strategic review of the organization and its statute. May I call on Lisa Rosen and Elena Paloni to announce the election results. Thank you.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to first quickly summarize the voting process, how this was managed this year. So as you all, at least the members know, the voting was for the election of the board members for the next 2 PWA seasons. We were also asked to vote for the approval of the annual report and as well as the proposed changes for a new statuto that has been discussed. You have received, though the members have received documentation for review 1 week before the voting process began. So Elena Pallone and I were on the election committee this year. And in fact, many of our active members heard from us as we searched for candidates who could be interested in the board roles. So we're happy to report that we found a group of extremely capable candidates, as well as a number of other members who are actually willing to support the board in team roles. So the methodology that we used for the online vote was similar to the process we used last year. A voting ballot was created with Google Forms and was made available to online to the PWA members on May 14th, and the PWA members were given until yesterday to vote. So out of 53 eligible PWA members, 37 members, in other words, 70% of the members exercised their right and they cast their vote. And now I will pass the word to Elena, who will inform you on the results of the election. You're on mute, Elena.
Good evening, everyone. We are happy to announce that the report, that 97% of the voters approved the annual report, and that the proposal for the new statuto was approved by 95% of those voting. And now for the results of the election of the board members. Gerlie Saura was elected, or I should say confirmed, as president. Mirella Kojokaru was elected treasurer and membership director. Anna Gergo was elected secretary. Catherine Costaggiu was elected programming director. Luisa Lopez was elected social director. Raffaella Di Primio was elected partnership director. Roberta Vivenzio was elected digital marketing director. We would like to congratulate our new board members and also thank all of those who participated in this process. Congratulations.
All right. Thank you.
Well, congratulations to the board. Thank you very much, Gerlie, for the remarks and the election committee for the excellent job that you do and you do every year. I think now it's the time to open the discussion in our conference. As you know, the topic will be on the recovery plan, and a topic that is very near to the heart of many of us. Recently, as you know, the Italian government approved a new draft of the plan, and as you know, it's gonna intervene in certain area, or better said, 6 areas that are considered particularly important for the economic recovery of our country. 2 of these areas are related to women empowerment, women employment, and youth. And as you know, these areas, like this group of people, women and young people, were among the more damaged by the crisis that was generated by the pandemic. Why is that? Are the measures foreseen by the recovery plan enough or sufficient in order to put an end to these damages and to make the way that women and young people will be the driver of the recovery of Italy? This and some other question will be discussed today. And so now I give the floor to our first speaker. His name is Roberto Argeri. He is a counsel at the international law firm Cleary, Gottlieb, Steen, and Hamilton. He has been named Rising Star in Italy by Legal 500 and ranked youngest lawyer among his generation. We have asked him to provide a little bit of an overview of the recovery plan. What are the measures that are foreseen specifically with reference to women employment and youth employment? Roberto, the floor is yours.
So first of all, good evening, and thank you very much for your presentation, Catherine. Thank you for your kind invitation. It's an honor and a pleasure to speak at this conference. As mentioned by you, given my legal background, I'll do my best to provide a brief introduction, overview of what the recovery plan is intended to pursue, to be in the context of the so-called next generation EU. To do so, let me share some visual aids that I prepared, which may be, I think that you should see me. Can you see the slides? Just a few slides to focus on the main concepts of our discussion.
Yes, we can.
First of all, I think that considering the focus of our discussion on gender gaps and youth employment, we need to focus on a couple of legal concepts that may be of help to consider when we want to understand where we actually are, we stand even the context of the recovery plan. We can draw a distinction between gender formal equality and gender substantial equality. What does it mean? It means that you can have a set of rules that prohibit any discrimination between men and women. This is something that happened long ago. We can, with the Constitutional Court decision number 33 of 1960, this was a landmark decision because the Constitutional Court ruled that the legal system at the time in place, which disqualified women from accessing the public offices, was illegal, was against our Constitution, in particular the principle of equality, formal equality, set forth in Article 3, paragraph 1 and 51 of the Italian Constitution. So this process has been going on for years. More than 60 years have now passed, and based on the Italian Constitution and the European legislation, we can say that equality between men and women is a fundamental principle of both national law and European law, including the case law of the European Court of Justice. So from a strictly legal standpoint, we can say that there is no formal discrimination against women. There is no formal discrimination between men and women. However, we know that this is not enough. It is not enough. We have another fundamental concept we need to consider: gender actual, substantial, which means that we need to implement measures that are actually able to grant same chances to people, to young people, to women, to achieve the highest roles in our public administration, to get the same business opportunities. And we need to understand that this is not something, this is not a byproduct of the, this is not a byproduct of the formal equality that was discussed before, of the rules that I discussed before. This is something that we need to work on with strong efforts. So this process requires affirmative actions, which are based on Article 3, paragraph 2 of the Italian Constitution and Article 51 of the Italian Constitution. Now, this is not, of course, an easy task, and we know that the recovery plan is intended to achieve these goals. So the plan basically consists of 6 missions, which are covered in hundreds of pages, but I'm not going to dwell on each of them. I think that we need to consider that the main portions of the funds are devoted to the digital, so-called digital revolution and so-called green revolution, in order to allow a transition of the Italian system in a green and more modern system. We have other missions like health, infrastructure for sustainable mobility, but I like to focus on education and research and cohesion and inclusion. So missions number 4 and number 5. Why? Because mission number 4, for example, is intended to fill some gaps in terms of quality and quantity in the supply of educational services, whereas mission number 5 is more intended to build on, invest in social infrastructures and invest in female entrepreneurship. So this is the overall structure of the plan. But as you can see, there is no specific mission devoted to gender equality and generational equality. Why is that? Is that we have 3 so-called cross-mission priorities, priorità trasversali, which means that each of these priorities should apply in each mission and with respect to each measure which is contemplated in each mission. So gender equality and generational equality should pervade, embrace the plan in its entirety. So I will skim through the smart working, which is also intended to help female employment, to ease, to enhance, the work-life balance. We have public housing mobility, but what is more interesting is the child care plan, which is included in mission number 4, and the female entrepreneurship, which is included in mission number 5. So why is this point so important to invest in preschool institutions, so kindergartens, nursery homes, is to allow equal opportunities to women and men. So this is absolutely important to do that. It is absolutely unacceptable that today we have very low percentage of children that can go to kindergartens and preschools, and the plan is intended to cover this gap, to fill this gap, at least in terms of there is an investment of more than 4 billion euros, which is not enough, but it's something to fill this gap. And also we have, in terms of female entrepreneurship, we will have something which is very important, which is this plan. These measures are intended to support implementation of innovative business projects for companies already in place, support the creation, the startup female entrepreneurial activities through certain resources and measures. And what is more important is the so-called Fondo Impresa per le donne. Why? Because this is actually this should be an impact in terms of investments of funds. This should be channeled to the female entrepreneurs. I have already touched upon the childcare plan and the Women's Enterprise Fund. You can see in this slide, there are other measures that are supposed to be enacted under the recovery plan from now until 2026 for young generations and female, the dual system, which means training on the job, universal civil service. There is a Family Act which is already discussed in the Parliament. But what is more important, I would like to focus on two main measures, which are the so-called conditionality clause and the gender equality certification system. The conditionality clause is a legal tool which is intended to make any grant of public funds subject to the condition of the fulfillment of certain requirements. What does it mean? It means that companies must invest in hiring young people and women. There should be, we can expect that should be clauses in calls for tenders, which may enable businesses to get access to public funds. This is very important. And also, what is more important, gender equality certification system, which is a certification with the goal to allow and, in a sense, prompt companies to adopt adequate policies, reduce the gender gap, especially with respect to the gender pay gap that is still existing. And this certification process is made up of 3 steps. We have established our working table on gender equality certification system at the Equal Opportunities Department. We have then the creation of an information system at the department. And then we have the activation of the certification system starting from the second half of 2022. So this system will be open to all enterprises and will be, of course, very important to see how it will be implemented and how it can achieve the goals that we want to achieve under the recovery plan. Just a few words, considering that I'm running out of time, a few words, final words. We need to ask, how can all these measures achieve the ambitious goal of filling gender gaps and ensuring more chances to young generations? To be honest, we don't know exactly yet, because this will depend on 2 main driving factors. First of all, how much money we are willing to invest in each mission, in each goal, and how in practice we are going to implement these measures. This is a much more complex task that we need to address. I'm not talked about numbers. I know that Mrs. Sabbadini will do. I think that's it's important to understand how much money going to invest in the following years, because this is an important, a crucial chance to reduce any gap that we are still realizing in this period. So I leave the floor to the next panelist. Thank you very much, Catherine, and thank you very much to everybody. And we'll be ready to answer any question you may have on these topics.
Thank you very much, Roberto, for this very exhaustive executive summary of what are 300 pages of document. We will see with Linda Laura Sabbadini later if the measures that you have so well explained will be enough to close the gender gap, will be enough to guarantee that women are equally represented, that they are able to break the ceiling and get to top positions. And also we will see whether the childcare system that the plan envisage is enough. But while we wait for Linda to connect, I'll give the floor to our next speaker. Her name is Marilisa Guida. She is the head of the Bank of Italy Financial Educational Division. And before leaving the floor to her and passing the floor to her, I would like to cite Kristalina Georgieva, who yesterday on her social media said the following: "When women are involved in decisions, economies fare better. So does the world. We need more women in finance to minimize the scares from the crisis and build resilience for the future shocks." So more women are necessary in the finance, but it's also necessary that more women have financial knowledges and financial literacy. Is it so, Marilisa? I'll give the floor to you.
Thank you, Catherine, and good evening, good afternoon to everybody, also from my side. Yes, as already said, I'm dealing with financial education, so I will bring that perspective. So the point is recovery fund, where do we stand in particular on financial literacy, financial education, how more financial literacy can help to improve the value of women. I have 4 main points. I summarize this point quickly and then I detail them. First of all, I would like to start with a fact. Still too many women have not achieved economic independence, and what is worse, don't realize how dangerous this condition is. A report recently issued by Caritas points out the appearance of new poor largely represented by women. As a matter of fact, during the pandemic, more women than men lost their jobs. Women's economic empowerment is beneficial for individual women because independent lives, less economic violence, more self-confidence. But there is more. It is beneficial for the economy as a whole. Evidence tells us that the financial industry loses $700 billion because of its inability to involve women adequately. The second point is the lack of economic independence is related to several existing gender gaps, including lower financial literacy skills. Once again, greater financial literacy means greater individual and collective well-being. The next point is financial education programs are necessary to improve awareness and confidence, fight discouragement, and provide the means to benefit from sound finance. More digital financial education programs at school for youth, at workplace, and at municipalities are also necessary. Of course, the last point is financial education alone is not enough. It has to be coupled with support measures for women-owned businesses and women's participation in the job market. How the recovery plan can help. Recovery plan consider the gender gaps, and so it is an opportunity that we cannot miss. The first point, when women's economic independence is an old and a new issue. at the same time. An old issue because it is rooted in gender gaps, cultural biases, stereotypes related to the idea of women's dedication to the family and their children's, stereotypes that women themselves do reiterate. It is a new issue because the pandemic crisis has widened the gaps and has disproportionately struck women, sometimes overwhelmed by the acceleration of routine as a consequence of digitalization and remote working. However, these new opportunities, digitalization and remote working, have to be governed so that they don't become new forms of social and financial exclusion. The last World Economic Forum's report on equality between men and women with regard to wages, job opportunities, education, and access to business capital shows that 99.5 years will pass before equality is achieved. Lower economic and financial skills also account for gender gaps. The survey on adult financial education conducted last year with the OECD shows that Italians have a low level of financial literacy, and women, especially as wives and retired women, have performed even worse than men because they have a lower level of education. Even university female students performed worse than their male counterparts. OECD PISA data show that 15-year-old girls performed worse than their male peers. And the gap is because within families, financial issues are more frequently discussed with sons than with daughters. This means that families don't give the good example, and gender stereotypes still exist and determine task distribution and the associated negative consequences. Increasingly, a stable relationship and longer life expectancy for women should make women understand that they should not rely on their partners or husband for the economic management of the household. The most recent evidences also show that those with less financial skills also have less financial resilience. That is, they are less prepared to face sudden difficulties, such as those typical of the current pandemic crisis. All the above, this is the third point, calls for intervention to fill those gaps. As already said, the recovery plan is an opportunity, but how can we make financial education engage women? An answer is starting by making women aware that knowing less generates underconfidence, because even when their knowledge is above the national average, women think they know less than they actually do. And this leads women to give up making even easy financial decisions. The consequences of this attitude include reluctance to use financial instruments, save, invest, and anxiety in dealing with financial issues. Dedicated effort should be concentrated on this issue to create self-confidence and provide basic skills to make the best of the opportunities offered by sound finance. The Bank of Italy, in partnership with the National Committee for Financial Education, have jointly launched a financial education program for women in financial hardship, also with another women association, Saura Optimist International. This program is completely online, available of our financial education website, Economy for All. Experts of the Bank of Italy over the national territory are training Saura Optimist volunteers in regional clubs to deliver the financial education program to the final target, so women in financial difficulties. Another online financial education program we have launched a recent other financial education program for women working in a public hospital. Women economic independence, however, requires greater effort, such as investing in financial education, and the recovery fund, as already said by Mr. Argeri, consider in his four mission: education and research. So we have used this money also in financial education program. More digital financial education, for example, is also necessary. Digital financial education, if well managed, can increase financial inclusion opportunity. Otherwise, it might entail financial exclusion, so the opposite. But there is more. Financial education is a precondition to take the opportunities offered by finance, but it is not enough in itself. Gender gaps can be fought ensuring equal access to economic resources, and I'm thinking of women entrepreneurship. Again, the Recovery Fund, as already said in the mission number 5, consider women entrepreneurship. So we need measures to facilitate access to credit for women entrepreneurs. For example, evidence shows that women owning businesses ask for credit less often than men, because women expect denial or being required to provide more asset to secure their loans, again because there are stereotypes in this direction. There is a strong discouragement effect in women, which is consistent with the evidence of women's greater risk aversion and their tendency to acknowledge less achievement than men usually do. More generally, measures to encourage women to participate to the job market are required. Women need measures and services to facilitate their family care, such as parental leaves and early childhood services. Italy is lagging behind in this respect. Income from work encourages people to deal with economic issues such as saving, investing, using financial services. So can launch a sort of virtual circus. The conclusion is women appear to be the largest share of consumers to be unserved, neglected, and misunderstood by the financial industry. So we can use this recovery fund, the opportunity of recovery fund, to fill these gaps, to recuperate the value of women in this respect. And as already said, is important, for example, the introduction of a national gender equality certification system, because it's an opportunity to have inside the company policy for reducing gender gaps. Another important measures is conditioning the execution of some project on the hiring of young people and women, also through training specialization contract. Then they can be activated before starting from working project. So for this step is all for me. It is all for me, for my side, and I leave the floor to the next speaker.
Thank you very much, Marilisa, for this speech. Financial knowledge is fundamental for women, and we hope the Recovery Fund and the measure that the Recovery Fund foresees include or incorporate this concept. And with this, I pass to our next speaker, Paola Corna Pellegrini. She's currently the CEO of Allianz Partner Group, as well as the president of the Italian Association of CEOs. She has an outstanding career that started with her being a graduate, receiving a degree in mathematics, and then successfully acquiring an MBA from the Business School of Saura. She has been a representative and in the top management of many multinational corporations, and she surely represents a role model for all and for many of us. Paola, can you give us a little bit of a background on this path, your path, and what should be the new leadership based also on the measures of the Recovery Fund?
Thank you. Sorry, I hope you hear me.
We can hear you okay.
Can you hear me? Yes. So thank you for the introduction, Catherine, and thank you for the interesting speakers' presentations that gave me some more inspiration for my roles and for my speech as well. So, in fact, the recovery plan or the Next Generation EU represents for Italy a real occasion to relaunch our country and to, we say in AICEO, the Association of the CEOs, to reinvent Italy. It has to do with many topics. We have heard about the 6 missions. But of course, inclusion, gender inclusion is one of the key areas that are absolutely key, again, to fill in terms of gaps that we are chronically having since, have been having since years and decades. Italy is really lagging behind many other countries in Europe and in the world. We know that the occupation has also decreased, even decreased during the pandemic. Now we are below 50%. The representation of the women in the top position is still much lower than it should be, because in the executive teams, we have more or less 20% of women, depending on the size of the companies and the industries. But as an average, we have only 20%, where we really achieved a good result in terms, above all, in terms of improvement and acceleration, is in the boards, where the women are represented at 39% currently, starting from 6% before the famous quota law, which is the Gulf for Moscow law, was enforced. So a law helped to improve. It seems the Italian organizations and people need to be obliged to follow through some rules in order to make things changing. As far as the current situation, you mentioned the measures to increase or to incentive the occupation, so the hiring of women as well as young people, which is absolutely crucial, because if we don't create new jobs, new work for these 2 categories, which are absolutely currently underrepresented and were mainly the 2 main categories affected by the pandemic for many reasons. We have to recognize it was also because the women are in the areas, are employed in the industries that have been more affected by the pandemic, like the tourism, the restoration, and so on areas. But it has also to do with the fact that many families had to cope with new tasks due to the pandemic, and the women, probably because of the lower pay salary, they renounced many times more than men to their job. So I wanted just to give some of the hints that have to make us all very aware of the urgency to intervene. The urgency, and I believe that Linda Laura tell us, I see her, she will tell us much more. Sorry, I was counting on your introduction, but I have to speak before you, so I tried to give also some data. So you will elaborate much more on that, as well as on the fact that if the recovery fund is enough or not to fill some of those gaps. So I don't want to elaborate on that. I only want to say that one important thing is that finally we have in the 6 missions the gender equality or the inclusion as one of the key measures. This is important. Mario Draghi has said many times that. I believe he is genuinely convinced that this is really crucial to change our country, not only from a social, ethical standpoint, but also from economical standpoint. More women working, more jobs for other people, more consumptions, and also more women in the companies in leadership position means more results, as already assessed and tested and demonstrated by many studies from famous Italian and foreign economists. So we need to believe in that, and everybody has to believe in that, above all top managers. So coming to what the companies can do to really improve, of course, we need to benefit of all the measures that this recovery fund will give us, incentives to hire women. We need anyway to make some further step in terms of change of culture, change of perception of the women performances and women behaviors, women leadership styles, because we need to overcome all the bias, the gender bias, the stereotypes that has created unconscious many times or conscious barriers to women development in their career in the organizations. Sometimes barriers that the women themselves were putting or are putting to themselves. So we need also to increase the self-confidence of the women that they can do, they can make it happen, they can be good and great in the job they do, also in leadership position. So in this certification that was mentioned, and one of the measures of the mission 6, and that Minister Elena Bonetti is designing and supporting and developing. And I have to say that together with Inclusione Donna, you are part of, and I am also part of as president of the Scientific Committee of Winning Women Institute, the first certification of gender equality launched in Italy. So together with Inclusione Donna and also with AICEO, the Association of CEOs I am president of since, I've been president of since last September, we have started to work with UNI, which is the Italian Standardization Agency. I don't know if I translate it properly, but the meaning is clear. And we together have launched a table, working table. We have already had many work sessions to create, to design the standard for the certification of the Italian organizations. We have been in the phase of defining the KPIs, the methodologies, the way to apply these KPIs that should be given as a target, both quantitative targets and qualitative targets. We are designing also the methodology, because we have to recognize that the organization have different possibility to achieve certain targets in terms of representation of the women, for example, or in terms of enforcement of some policies. But we need to change the culture, so to give the KPIs and then to find proper and fair way to apply to different industries, to different size of the companies, to different to professionals, for example, to adapt this format to each and every organization in order to be sure that all the Italian organization will follow through. We have to remember that 80% of our industries are SME, and that they employ 80% of our citizens, let's say workers. So we need absolutely to have them on board. So I want to ensure everybody that the purpose is exactly that. Just to conclude, this is one of the key pillars, the 4 key pillars of Inclusione Donna program for this year, which also wants to create a bicameral commission in order to ensure that all the new norms and the reforms will be evaluated from this commission in terms of gender equality at an early stage, as well as create a body in the Ministry of Economy and Finance or in the Equal Opportunity Ministry, in order then to assess the reforms and the norms and to see which is the impact a priori, to see which will be the impact of these norms on women, and then to take a potential remediation plan in order to have a fair application of that. And finally, we need to measure, and to measure, because if we don't measure what our KPIs in terms of country, in terms of companies, we cannot learn and we cannot improve. So we need to create a business intelligence system and digital platform in order to have accessibility for all the stakeholders of the system to the key indicators, and see if we are able to, where we stand now, and if we are able all together to improve. So we need to work together and to network, and this is why I want to really thank all of you, to really thank PWA for inviting me, inviting so many important speakers and representation of other associations, because it's key to networking and to be together in order to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paola. You're right. We need to know where do we stand. We need to measure, and we need to measure the economic contribution of women to both to the economy and both to the revenue of companies. And with this, I see that Linda Laura Sabbadini joined us. She is the Central Director of ISTAT, Chairman of W20. She has been in the Committee of the Economic and Social Expert for the post-pandemic recovery. And I know she's very critical with respect to the measures that are foreseen in our Recovery and Resilience Plan. Linda Laura, the premises of the plan says that it has a very significant and strong focus on women and young people. Do you agree? Is it that so? And the measures that are foreseen, are they enough?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. I want to start with a reflection. We know that people of all over the planet are at the epicenter of 3 epochal processes: the pandemic crisis, the climate crisis, and the technological revolution. And this will have a considerable social, economic, and environmental impact for many years to come, and for Italy too. And for Italy in particular. A pandemic crisis is a crisis in care, in which women have played a leading, active role at many levels in in our countries in the labor market. They are the majority of the health professionals, teachers, domestic workers, sanitation workers, elders, care workers, housekeepers, mothers, and so on. And also in countries where women hold the highest level of political power, they have proven to be better skilled to arrest the pandemic. This is very interesting. And this role does appear to be largely undervalued, and we need more public and private investment on this, on those subjects and topics. The second is climate crisis, and the third is the technological revolution. Technological revolution requires high level of care and awareness at social and especially at political level, since the expected dramatic consequence of jobs disruption further exacerbates gender inequalities and social exclusion. We know the situation of Italian women is particularly critical from the point of view of the labor market. This didn't depend on the pandemic. The situation has been difficult for years. Less than 50% of women work. And in Europe, Italy is the last female employment for women from 25 to 34 years, the last country after Greece. The quality of work has worsened. Involuntary part-time work has reached 60% for women. Precarious and irregular work has grown. No progress has been made over the years in the development of social infrastructures. Only 25% of children between 0 and 3 years go to the school, to the daycare. Italy invests in care for the elderly and disabled people less than Germany, the 25% of the investment of Germany. The recovery plan is not a solution, this recovery plan, for all this problem, because gender equality is not a priority. Is not a priority as ecological transition is a priority, digital revolution is a priority, economic infrastructure is a priority, but gender equality, no. The objective of educational services is 33% for children between 0 and 3 years old. Is the objective of Europe for 2010. And we have this objective 17 years after. And investment on female entrepreneurship is only 800 million euro. I think that this recovery plan is an important step for the development of Italy, but it's not an important step for the development of women. For women, it's only a starting point. I hope that the government can find others investment, others money to invest more. I hope we'll find a way to invest more in social infrastructure, which is the first problem to be solved in Italy, because 20% of women leave their jobs after the birth of their children, and this is unacceptable. And the government has identified gender procurement as a way to improve female employment. This is important, but it is still difficult to understand how really it will work. It certainly represents an opportunity to be exploited, but it is unlikely that it will be rigidly adopted in all sectors. In many sectors, there is no female job offer. And the problem we have is the cultural resistance of politics to adopt gender equality as a priority objective. I was hoping that in this case, we would make it. Instead, it was not like that. It's just a small starting point. We must continue to fight to invest on gender equality more, and very soon. We need facts, we need investment, we need actions, and not words. It will be very difficult to solve the situation of women with this level of investment for gender equality. We have to improve the measures, and we have to work starting from this level of investment. The government wants to launch a gender equality strategy, and this is very important. It's very important to develop it, to launch a gender equality strategy. And I think it's very important inside the gender equality strategy to develop an action plan on gender stereotypes, because this is a crucial point in Italy. I think in other countries too. We have to develop lifelong learning programs and campaign against gender stereotypes. By providing education curricula on unconscious transmission of stereotypes in all fields for boys and girls from preschool to university, with age-appropriate tools covering citizenship education, focused on human rights, equality, culture of respect, financial education. This is very, very important, financial education and caring skills, safe and critical use of internet, social media, artificial intelligence, in order to limit the potential of such technology to exacerbate gender inequalities and in general social inequalities. I think it's important to develop this program by updating and revising school takes, by including women's history, implementing actions for empowerment and role modeling, by offering a wider range of gender representation in terms of attitudes, behaviors, leadership roles, profession, promote counseling on future-oriented choices, including early education in STEAM and reduction in the gender digital divide. Implementing for all multipliers. Multipliers are for me people of influence, such as teachers, professors, educators, doctors, social workers, psychologists, and so on. Training programs covering stereotypes, prejudice, and gender violence, enabling them to change lives and aspirations. Finally, only one thing. I think it's very important to develop gender and intersectional impact assessment and auditing in the design phase of legislative, political, strategic, and programmatic initiative, and in any multi-year post-pandemic development and reconstruction plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Linda. So we saw that for the recovery fund, women are not a priority, not enough investment in social infrastructures. It would have been done more. And with this, I go to the next speaker, Antonio Ragusa. He's the dean and founder of the Rome Business School. He's an entrepreneur, professor, as well as a qualified lawyer. And I go with him with the question, the recovery fund and the plan did not have women in the end as a priority. What about young women and young people generally? Are there a priority?
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Gerlie, and thanks to all the PWA team for this session, for this invitation opportunity to discuss such a relevant topic for Italy and for Europe as a whole. So, like you were mentioning at the beginning of the session, there are three main priorities in this plan. So, three assets and roadmaps that all the missions of the plan should follow. So, you mentioned already the gender gap, the territorial gap, because in Italy, like you know, I mean, southern Italy is absolutely underdeveloped compared to central and northern Italy. But there's this third gap that we should try to fill by this recovery plan, which is absolutely the generational gap. And Catherine was mentioning the issue regarding our youth, young people in Italy. And absolutely we can say about it that Houston, we have a problem about youth in Italy, because first of all, young people overall are decreasing. The number of the young population in Italy is decreasing very, very quickly. And obviously a country without youth is a country without future. So I would like to start this by giving you some data regarding the demographic crisis of our country. So we are in a general situation at the international level whereby the world population is still growing very quickly. So the overall estimate says that by 2050, from the current 7 billions will be 9 millions on the planet. But Italy and Europe, more generally, are going in the opposite direction. So in Italy, currently we are 60 millions, but by 2040 will be 59. By 2065 will be 43 million. And by basically 2070, we will lose the 11% of our population. And we are getting older as a nation. We already are the oldest country in Europe, and the statistics, the demographic trends tell us that by 2070, 30% of the Italian population will be over 65. So a third of the country will be over 65. Why is it happening, and what can we do, and what is the recovery plan doing about it? So we have less births because we have less opportunities. The income level of families is decreasing. We have less job opportunities, especially in the south of Italy, where we have peaks of about 30% of unemployment rate, and it's even bigger for female. So there's an additional gender issue. And what is even more, I would say, worrying, in my opinion, is that we are losing an incredible amount of qualified young people that are deciding to leave Italy, to leave the country, because simply they can't find enough opportunities, so they are moving abroad in search of a better future. Let me give you just one number about this dramatic situation. In 2018, we've lost 117,000 young people that have left Italy, and they left Italy to go mostly towards the United Kingdom, Germany, and France. And 30,000 of these people who left Italy a couple of years ago, but the similar trend happened in 2019, 2020, and 2021. 30,000 of them were with bachelor degrees, so they were very qualified young people. And so we are losing an incredible human capital, and in addition, we can say that we are losing and wasting an incredible amount of money and investment that both the country and the families have done for and in these young people. Because to give you an idea, it has been estimated by Confindustria that in order to raise and educate a person, a young girl or a young boy, till the age of 25 years, a family and the state spend 165,000 euros. So for each young person, we invest this amount of money. So it's been estimated that each year, due to the fact that so many young people leave Italy, we are losing an investment of about 35 billion euros. So it's a good part of the recovery plan that we are analyzing. So this is the situation. We have few young people, always less. They are leaving Italy because they can find opportunities, and many of them are underqualified. They are not in the condition, like some of other speakers mentioned, to compete with at an international level with a similar level of age and of desires. So our recovery plan actually is considering this issue, and it has taken, or at least considered, some actions in order to face the situation. So you mentioned 6 main missions. I would say that 3 of them has to do a little bit more specifically with the generational gap and the generational challenge. So mission 1, like you were mentioning, has to do with digitalization, innovation, competitivity, and culture. There are some specific sub-actions within this main mission. So one thing that for sure could help to better also educate, include, and offer more opportunities to our youth are all the incentives for the digital transition and the adoption of new technologies also in the private sector. Why is it important also for our youth and also to reduce our generational gap? Because most of the new jobs and the trend in the job market is related to digitalization and innovation. And still in Italy, we have a huge gap also in terms of digital innovation, digital culture, and I would say still digital divide. So especially in the south of Italy, still the infrastructure and the adoption of IT systems and solutions that can support the growth of youth in this regard are very low. A second area of intervention that the recovery plan has considered is analyzed and discussed in the mission number 4 that has to do with education and research. There are some subcategories also in this mission that could support, that could favor the fact that we can overcome the generational gap. So you already mentioned the fact that the state, the government is going to invest a lot in kindergartens, but generally speaking, service for primary education, which is good, but it's not enough. But luckily, they've also considered what they call School 4.0, because they have considered investments for new technologies in all types and levels of schools. They've also taken into consideration the training for teachers. So a problem that we have in Italy is that the competencies and skills also of our professors are not fully updated, especially in the STEM area, but they've considered this area of intervention. They've also set aside some money for the renovation of schools in terms of building and facilities. And the plan has also considered investments for the reforms of doctorates, bachelor degrees, and vocational training, which in my opinion is vital, is essential to also help overcome the generational gap. A last step that we can find in the recovery plan in order to face the generational gap is the mission number 5, which is called inclusion and cohesion, which relates to the policies and activities for improving the Italian labor market. It's a little bit vague in terms of action, but it's something that they have considered. They have put a specific action, like I think also Linda was mentioning, and also the previous speakers regarding the women entrepreneurship. Not much, probably not enough, but there's something about it. It's not specifically related to the generational, more to the gender gap, but obviously it has always to do with youth, because we need new entrepreneurs that support the economic environment in Italy. There's something else regarding urban renovation, urban redesign, not so much related to generational gap. So I would say there is something in total. In education research, they have allocated about 31 billions, and in the digitalization and innovation, we have 42 billions. So already 70 and something billions, plus something regarding cohesion, inclusion. So I would say we have money about it. But let me say this very frankly about the recovery plan. It is for sure a boost, a potential boost for our economy, for our society, and for the key missions that we have: gender, generational, and territorial gap. But let's be honest, we already had a ton of money that we didn't use, we didn't spend. Especially in the south of Italy, we already got an incredible amount of money each year from the European Union, and we have constantly wasted this money. So the key challenge is absolutely to do so that these plans are fully activated, are fully implemented, and Yes, there are some limits in the design of the plan. I agree with the comments of the previous speakers, but I would say that it's already good. It's already good in my opinion. But if we lose again this opportunity, this occasion, due to a lack of project management, we really risk to fail once again. So the real challenge that we have now is project management, is also to train people that can guide the implementation of the plan. I've seen that in the plan they have considered the fact that the management of this fund will be very, very centralized. At least this is what appears from the plan. Let's see. In my opinion, there are some good things that, if implemented, could absolutely contribute to the solution of the three main challenges that we have mentioned. But really, the attention now should be in the project management of this plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Antonio. I have this in mind of the beginning of your speech, that our Italians are on their way of extinction and the one that survive will be French. So this is a little bit scary. But so the recovery plan for young people, it's a good start. We need to have a good governance that makes sure that that we receive will be and will go where they should go, and that most of the project will have a good assessment. I just want to bring again Linda Laura, and I want you to hear from her after the intervention of Antonio on whether she agrees with the measure on young people.
Yes, I think Antonio, I agree with Antonio about the analysis of youth people, and I agree with the challenge we have. We have to spend really in a good way this enormous capital we have. This is really a challenge for our country. At the same time, I think we have a problem of cultural resistance of our political leadership in understanding the importance of the priority of youth population and gender equality. I think we have a problem in this sense, but we have a lot of opportunities inside this recovery plan, in particularly for youth population, less for women. And we have to win this challenge. This is really the challenge we have, because the problem of the lack of project management is the first problem we have in our countries, in particular in the South, but it's really the first problem for implementing the recovery plan.
Thank you very much, Linda. I call then Roberto Argeri, who represents the South. He's from Sicily and he's a rising star. Do you agree with what have been said on these issues of the recovery plan?
Absolutely, I agree with all the other speakers said. Unfortunately, and luckily, I'm from the South, from Sicily, so I understand that we face many gaps, and we need to. And I also understand and I agree that we had a lot of money in the past, especially in terms of European funds, and we didn't use that money that much. I mean, we didn't use that money. We lost that money. So this is something that we need to recoup in the following years. Absolutely.
you, Roberto. Let's not lose the money. And I actually want to ask Marilisa from Banca d'Italia. You were a little bit critical on the measures that are foreseen for women entrepreneurship. What do you think would be a good measure to promote this kind of entrepreneurship? Specific funding measure or better condition in access to credit?
Maybe both, because as I particularly agree with Linda Laura, because one of our problem is the lack of a project manager. So the point is also to develop this kind of skills, and also the confidence in particular of women. So women project manager, the point maybe could be so in order to do this, we need specific programs, so education, so investment in skills, and also the possibility to manage incentive, the possibility to manage entrepreneurship, enterprises, and so we have to. Yes, I agree. We have not lose this money. No, the money is not enough. We have to use in the better way this money. No, so we need also some intelligence, I think, governors, in order to use in the better way this opportunity, because okay, I could be not exactly what we want, but it is an opportunity. So we have use this recovery plan in the better way. I think, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. I think we're running very late. I will now close the conference. The recovery plan, it's a good start. Let's use it well, and let's hope that's going to be done. I thank you very much once again, our speaker. I apologize to Paola, she had to leave earlier. Thank you once again to our panelists for accepting to talk to our conference, and to all our guests for being here this night. This is the last conference of Professional Women Association for this year. We will meet again in September, and have a nice summer, I guess.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Have a nice evening.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you for the opportunity to host you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Gerlie.
Bye.